Hey guys, Happy New Year! Before we move into our investment strategies for 2025, I wanted to quickly summarize my major investment moves in 2024. So consider this as a year in review. What I wanted to do is to highlight the different ideas, the different trends that I veered into this last year. I think highlighting these strategies would really set the roadmap for us on what I'm going to be doing with this channel and how I'm going to be investing. Again, I am not a professional investment advisor, so I'm just really sharing with you everything that I've been doing throughout the years. So in this last year, there are a few areas that we focused on. There are things that closed, and like with all good investments, I did exit some of them this year. So this is what we'll look to cover in this video. So enough of this intro, and let's go. But before anything, if you are new to this channel, hi, I'm Mark. It's nice to meet you. In this channel, I talk a little bit about lifestyle, but I mostly talk about business and investments. And before going into the 5 main highlights of my investments in 2024, I wanted to thank you guys for finally getting me through the 10,000 subscriber mark. I started this in 2020 during the pandemic, and it's taken 4 years to get me to this milestone. So getting to this 10,000 subscriber mark, I'm just really thankful for the support that you guys have given me. In 2024, I actually did a lot less videos than I was doing in the previous years. I wanted to focus on more meaningful content. So this year had less to do with app reviews and really more about different strategies, taking the best of what's out there and really employing it to how we can do it here in the Philippines. So as we kicked off the year in 2024, I shared with you that this year is finally the year that you should invest in the S&P 500. So at the start of 2024, the S&P 500 was trading around 4,700. In that video, I shared that the S&P 500 was projected to grow to 5,500, which is about an increase of about 17 to 18%. Fast forward to December 2024, the S&P 500 is now trading around 5,900. So that's an increase of about 25%. So the S&P 500 even beat its estimates. For 2025, the S&P 500 is estimated to finish around 6,500 to 7,000. That's as much as an increase of 20% from now. My personal take on this is that I don't think it will go up that high. While the S&P 500 will continue to grow this year, I think we won't be maintaining the same pace that we did in 2024. I think realistically, it's going to be between 5,300 to 5,500. There are going to be pullbacks as well along the way, so it's going to be trading right around the middle. So we started the year with that bullish stance in investing in the S&P 500. We are starting 2025 the same way, but this year, I'm telling you to proceed with a bit more caution, to look for the dips, look for opportunities when it would be best to invest in this global benchmark. Let's move on to number 2. We move on to February, and don't worry, this is not going to be a monthly breakdown. Again, I only want to point out 5 main highlights from 2024. So as we were bullish about the S&P 500, and I told you 2-3 years now that I've been investing in the S&P 500 via the BPI US Equity Feeder Fund. Unfortunately, BPI doubled their trust fees. Previously at 0.75% per annum, they decided to jack this up to 1.5%. So this left me scrambling. I didn't want to pay 1.5% to BPI to be simply copying the S&P 500. So while this left me disoriented, this was actually a great opportunity to find alternatives out there, to look at BPI's competitors, and it was great content that you guys appreciated. I looked at the other banks out there that had the S&P 500 as well in their UITF portfolio. So there was RCBC, there's Metro Bank, there's BDO, and East West Bank. And while BDO and East West Bank had the lowest per annum trust fees at 0.5%, it wasn't as easy as that, as going with the lowest trust fees, I actually had to factor in the investment minimums, how much US dollars that you had to put in as your minimum average daily balance. So factoring all these in and employing my daily investment strategy that I was doing with BPI. With BPI, you can actually invest as little as $1 in the BPI US Equity Feeder Fund. But with new minimums coming into play, I had to rethink this and did a lot of number crunching. To be honest, this was actually the hardest video that I had to put together. The amount of preparation, the number crunching, the thousands of Excel lines that I had to go through Eventually, I went with East West Bank. Again, they have the lowest per annum trust fees, but also they have the lowest minimum in terms of the US dollars that you have to maintain in your savings account. So it's only at $200. So this was more advantageous versus the other banks where it's usually at $500. So while I'm maintaining my investments, my past positions in the BPI US Equity Feeder Fund, I am no longer continuing to invest in it. Instead, I have moved my future investments to East West Bank. So just as a footnote here, a lot of guys have actually been commenting. I think it might be the RCBC guys themselves who are doing this. I'm not sure. RCBC has recently launched its S&P 500 UITF in a peso-denominated fund. So that's a lot of good news. I like to think that our small community here in this channel have been instrumental to RCBC launching this. So I'm glad that we can keep these conversations going. And hopefully, the banks out there will even give better competitive rates. As I've said before, I'm just waiting for GCash Invest to have an S&P 500 fund in their portfolio so that more Filipinos can have easy access to this global benchmark. So let's move on to number 3. While this was not a new investment strategy per se, I was actually able to do one of my more meaningful videos in this channel. I've been wanting to see how it's really like to invest in an S&P 500 fund and comparing this to investing in real estate. Now, I don't have as much retail experience, but I do have one real estate investment. And again, going back to the data that I put together for that S&P 500 video, looking to invest regularly through the different offers of different banks. Since I've actually been doing this with my investment in a condo in BGC, I was able to put this side by side what it would be like to have invested in the S&P 500 regularly in the past 10 years. And also doing this for my BGC condo, the data that I put together shows that investing in the S&P 500 is perhaps even better than investing in my BGC condo. I mean, this is one sweeping generalization. Please feel free to check out that older video or actually any of the older videos that I'm referencing through the links down below. Investing in these funds, as unsexy as they are, could actually give you a comparable or even better return and a lot more passively. I think real estate is still the best investment if done right, if done very actively, but I think real estate is not as passive as we usually think. So again, for me, this video was actually most meaningful, and this is a series that I actually want to delve into more. I want to cover more real estate in this channel. If you guys have, again, horror stories or success stories that you want to share, let me know, and I want to cover it and see how real estate really pans out for a lot of you. Let's move on to the fourth highlight from 2024. I actually didn't want to cover this at the start, but this year I bought a new car. I bought a Kia Sonet. Now, while buying a car might be a lot different from what we're expecting from this channel, I started featuring my Kia Sonet because I actually bought it from exiting a few of my investments. I sold portions of my investments in money market funds, global funds in the form of the BPI European Equity Feeder Fund, some Philippine stocks, and also some crypto in the form of Bitcoin. From the price of 758,000, I actually got to save based on my investment gains of over 220,000 pesos. And these are investments that I've made in the last 6 to 8 years. I'm a firm believer that each investment has a good exit strategy as well. So while I didn't have this strategy firmly in place from the beginning, I thought that part of the learnings, part of the sharing from this channel is letting you guys know when to exit as well. I mean, each one would have their own criteria. I guess what I wanted to share is that when you exit your investments, you have to be good with it. When I sold some of my positions in Bitcoin, I think it was around $66,000 to one Bitcoin. Now it's around $94,000 as of the time of the shooting. So that might be giving me a little FOMO. The S&P 500 and the global markets as a whole also went up a lot more since selling some of my positions mid-year. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Sometimes we sell at the right price. Sometimes we sell at an even better price. Sometimes we sell when we are down. But whatever exit strategy you employ, you have to be happy with it. Even if you might feel FOMO after, that's just part of the whole investment game. And unfortunately, none of us can predict when the best timing would be. Being happy with your decision regardless of the repercussions when it comes to these investments. So again, I didn't want to buy a car through a car loan. I just think that it's very wasteful. I think that if I had the cash, the investments that I could move around to afford the car interest-free, then that's what I personally prefer. I'm also glad to share that even though this was a big expense for me this year, I'm glad that the Kia Sonet video actually opened up this channel to a lot more people out there. So for some of you who might not be used to my car videos on this channel, I'm sorry about that, but we're actually growing the base of this channel, and I guess we are expanding on the lifestyle side of this channel. Rest assured though that I will always tie it in with investments, what are good buys, what are bad buys, and basically stick around for some more of it this year. And lastly, number 5, one of the major shakeups that we encountered this year in investing in the Philippines as a whole would be the exit or closure of some of the global trading platforms that we've had access to in the past 2 or 3 years. So the first one to go earlier in the year is Shari-shari. Amongst the different trading platforms out there, Shari-shari was the only one that's Filipino-based. So in mid-2024, Shari-shari closed down, and quickly after, an announcement was made by EToro. While EToro made the announcement in May, it actually dragged on, and they only recently officially closed down their Philippine operations just this December. This was a major shakeup because a lot of us had been investing in the US and global markets through these trading platforms. What we learned from these closures is that the SEC are actually cracking down on these global trading platforms since they were not registered here in the Philippines. That's up for debate if you think the SEC was right in doing that. But these closures are leaving us with a bit of a void. What we learned was that to properly research first if the SEC is going to be allowing a certain app or a certain company. So we have to be very careful. Some of you have commented that you were in eToro for the long run, that you wanted to keep investing more. With this forced closure, you had to sell your positions even at a loss. The really legit investment instrument that we have right now, if you wanted to invest in these global markets, would be really through the banks or the insurance companies, UITFs through the banks, or mutual funds through the insurance companies. These are the investments that I am confident that will not be encountering any regulatory hassle. And the good news though is that there seems to be other alternatives out there soon. Several weeks ago, there have been press releases going around that GPDRs are coming. These are Global Philippine Depositary Receipts. GPDRs will actually allow the local brokerages to offer US and other global stocks. Anyway, while these global trading platforms have shut down, alternatives are coming into play through these GPDRs. Again, as I've mentioned before, I don't think they will have the same features, the same kind of extensive functionalities that the global trading platforms had, like eToro. But at least you're going to be feeling safer, having that peace of mind that your investments are actually sanctioned by the SEC. So those are the 5 main highlights of my investment moves in 2024. So what do you think about your own investment moves in 2024? What are your big gains? What are your big losses? Share your comments down below. Thank you again for getting me through the 10,000 subscriber mark. If you've liked this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, guys, and happy investing.